What if the person destined to rescue you is someone you've trained yourself not to see? This is a true account of a man who watched his empire evaporate in a single evening, and the night cleaner who became his redemption. A woman the world had rendered invisible, a man too shattered to seek a lifeline, and one pivotal encounter that altered both of their destinies forever. Stay with me, because this story will reshape how you perceive the individuals in your orbit. You'll discover why our most profound breakthroughs often arrive in the most unassuming forms, and you might just recognize that someone in your world is hoping you'll finally acknowledge them. This is a tale of hidden grace, quiet champions, and the compassion that finds us when we've surrendered. Let me transport you to that evening in Seattle, when a foundation crumbled. Welcome to Winds of Thought. While listening, please tap that like button and share your perspective on the story and your location in the comments. You see, life possesses a unique talent for teaching us humility at the most unpredictable moments. Let me introduce you to Alexander Vance, a man convinced he had decoded the universe. Alexander was the portrait of achievement. Assured, the founder and CEO of Apex Dynamics in downtown Seattle, an enterprise he constructed from the ground up. For over a decade, he'd labored relentlessly, forfeiting all for his vision. His corner office occupied the 45th floor, with panoramic windows presenting the entire city beneath him like a constellation of ambition. But on this specific night, those lights seemed to taunt him. It began around 10 p.m. Alexander was the sole occupant, finalizing the most monumental agreement of his career. The next day, he was scheduled to ink a partnership valued at $12 billion. $12 billion. Can you conceive it? It would cement Apex Dynamics as an industry titan. Every sacrifice was culminating. Then his monitor glitched. A solitary flicker, a crimson alert materialized. Then a second. And a third. Within moments, his entire workspace was pulsating with warnings. System errors. Critical failures. Essential data dissolving before him. Alexander's pulse quickened. He typed desperately, attempting to diagnose the catastrophe, but it was like witnessing a digital avalanche. His firm's complete infrastructure was failing. Client databases, transaction histories, the very core of Apex's worth was disappearing into the void. They were under assault, a digital breach so advanced his cybersecurity unit was powerless. He snatched his phone, dialing his lead engineer. No response. He tried his operations director. Nothing. The entire team had departed, oblivious their livelihood was disintegrating. He struck the desk, his breathing shallow and rapid. "This isn't real," he muttered. "Not tonight. Not when I'm this close." Beyond the glass, Seattle pulsed with life. People were socializing, enjoying shows, immersed in their own narratives. They were unaware that high above, a man's entire existence was collapsing. The city is indifferent, Alexander thought with acrimony. It progresses, regardless of your triumphs or failures. He'd dismissed his staff earlier. He couldn't confront their apprehension. Now he longed for a single other person. The quiet in that vast space was oppressive. Just him, and the blinking monitors illustrating his impending ruin. That's when he detected a sound from the corridor. Muffled footsteps, then the soft roll of a cart. Alexander glanced up, bewildered. Who could be here now? A woman stood at his doorway, guiding a janitorial trolley. She wore a simple blue uniform, her hair tied back. She appeared to be in her late 30s, with perceptive eyes that registered surprise seeing him there in the dimness, encircled by flashing crimson displays. "My apologies." "Sir," she stated, her voice calm and measured. "I believe the floor was vacant." "I can return." Alexander released a hollow chuckle. "It's fine. You're only interrupting my total collapse." The woman paused at the threshold. She observed him, then the screens, her look shifting from curiosity to empathy. "Is everything all right?" she inquired. Alexander shook his head. "My corporation is under digital siege. 12 years of labor gone, so no, nothing is all right." Most individuals would have offered sympathies and retreated. This woman did not. Instead, she moved closer, her gaze analyzing the screens with clear understanding. "This resembles a coordinated intrusion," she noted softly. "A severe one." Alexander turned, astonished. "What did you say?" "The code sequences on your display," she continued, indicating. "This isn't a random failure. An intruder is inside extracting and corrupting data. How could you possibly know that?" Alexander asked, rising, his focus now absolute. She held his gaze with a steady, confident poise. Because this was my former profession. Before circumstances redirected my path. Alexander stared at this woman in a custodian's uniform, articulating concepts his own highly paid specialists failed to grasp. It seemed unbelievable, yet her demeanor carried a quiet authority that compelled belief. "Your name?" he asked. "Elena," she answered. "Elena Rodriguez." He studied her. His technicians were absent. His experts had been outmaneuvered. His life's work was dying. Desperation can make us place faith in the most improbable saviors. "Can you assist me?" he asked, his voice almost a whisper. Elena placed her cleaning supplies aside and entered his office. "I can attempt to," she stated simply. "But I'll require full system permissions." Alexander moved from the terminal. "It's all yours." As Elena settled before the keyboard, her fingers connecting with the keys, an energy shifted in the room. Neither realized it then, but this chance meeting between a ruined executive and a cleaner with a concealed history would redefine both of their futures, because occasionally, our rescuers aren't the ones we anticipate. They are the ones we've consistently failed to notice. Let me share something about Elena Rodriguez that Alexander couldn't yet comprehend. 6 years prior, she ranked among the nation's premier digital security experts. She was employed by a prestigious Silicon Valley firm, safeguarding financial institutions from hackers. She was celebrated, esteemed, and ascending. Then her mother fell ill. A rare neurological condition, devastating and swift. Helena abandoned her career to provide care, relocating to Seattle for family support. She spent years witnessing the person she cherished most deteriorate, accompanying her through treatments, residing in clinical rooms, hoping for a recovery that never arrived. After her mother's passing, Helena faced overwhelming debts and a professional history showing a significant hiatus. The tech industry is relentless. A multi-year absence is a permanent stain. Corporations sought candidates without interruptions, so Elena accepted any available work. Nocturnal office cleaning, unseen labor for the overlooked. But here is what those firms failed to appreciate. Just because Elena wielded a mop didn't mean her intellect had forgotten its craft. Each night, while sanitizing empty workspaces, she observed vulnerabilities, security weaknesses, passwords on display, unsecured workstations. She identified all the errors capable of ruining a business, and she remained silent because her opinion was never sought. Nobody truly noticed her. Until this evening. Until Alexander Vance, desolate and isolated, actually perceived her and listened. Now Elena was at his computer, her fingers moving across the keyboard as if she'd never paused. Alexander watched, mesmerized, as code streams populated the display, as she navigated his architecture with absolute command. "Your isolated backup arrays," she stated, not glancing away. "Are they networked with your primary system?" "No," Alexander responded. "They're physically separate. Why?" For the first time since the crisis started, Elena offered a slight smile. "That is our opportunity. Whoever breached you missed your backups. We can restore." A spark of hope ignited in Alexander's chest, a sensation he believed was extinguished. "You're certain this is reparable?" "We can try," Elena said. "But I need unconditional access. No limitations. And I need your complete trust." Alexander produced his universal keycard, the one granting entry to every system in the building. He gave it to her without a second thought. "You have it. Please don't prove me wrong." She looked up and he glimpsed something in her eyes. Not pride, something deeper, resolve. "I won't," she affirmed. "But when this succeeds, remember who stood with you tonight." "I will," Alexander said. And he intended it. Together, they rode the elevator to the sub-level, to the server core Alexander considered the soul of Apex Dynamics. The atmosphere was chilled, saturated with the drone of machinery and blinking indicators. Elena moved between the towering equipment racks like a conductor before an orchestra. "We will revive it," she declared. "But I'd need time. Perhaps 5 hours, and your continued faith." "Granted," Alexander replied. For the first time he wasn't commanding, and it felt appropriate. As Elena worked, Alexander observed, she was concentrated, relentless, fully immersed. Each input was precise. Every command had purpose. Hours elapsed. They consumed stale coffee. They spoke little, but there was solace in shared struggle. in having an ally when all seemed lost. Around 4 a.m., a shift occurred. The red alerts started vanishing. One by one, subsystems rebooted. Erased files were reconstructing. The digital turmoil was transforming into order. "Wait," Alexander breathed, scarcely trusting it. "Is this real?" Elena leaned back, fatigue and accomplishment blending on her features. "Your company is reviving, Mr. Vance. It simply required someone who wouldn't abandon it." Alexander felt an unexpected moisture in his eyes. He was not a man who wept. But now, relief overwhelmed him so completely he couldn't resist. "How can I ever thank you?" he asked, his voice unsteady. "You don't," Elena said gently. "You just remember this moment. And perhaps you repair what's fractured beyond the servers." As morning light filtered through the basement windows, the main console displayed a final message: "System restoration complete." Alexander stared at those words silently. His enterprise was saved. The partnership could proceed. His ambitions remained viable, but strangely that no longer seemed paramount. He faced Elena, this woman who had materialized from the shadows when he was most broken. "No," he said, We've been restored, together." When employees began arriving that morning, they discovered an unusual scene. Their CEO was in the basement server room with a woman in a custodian's uniform, both sipping coffee and exchanging quiet smiles, surrounded by active monitors, showing a network miraculously recovered. They didn't know this woman had rescued the entire organization. They didn't know she'd transformed their leader's perspective permanently. They merely saw a cleaner and questioned her presence. But Alexander saw her, truly saw her, and he was determined to ensure everyone else would too. Because sometimes the most remarkable individuals are those we pass daily without a glance, and it nearly requires utter loss to finally make us see. Later that morning, Alexander convened his leadership team. The conference room filled with perplexed managers, all questioning the urgent summons. They'd heard whispers of an overnight incident, but the details were unknown. Alexander stood at the table's head, and beside him stood Elena. She still wore her blue uniform, her hands clasped tightly. The apprehension in her eyes was visible. She felt out of place here, and she knew it. "I want you all to meet someone," Alexander started, his voice clear and firm. "This is Elena Rodriguez. Last night, while we were all absent, our company was targeted. A deliberate attempt was made to obliterate us. And this woman," he gestured to her, "she prevented it." The room fell silent. Glances were exchanged. Some viewed Elena with open doubt. A custodian. Saved the company. Michael Shaw, Alexander's head of operations, a man in a tailored suit with a skeptical expression, folded his arms. "You're claiming the night cleaner resolved an issue our entire IT staff couldn't?" Alexander didn't flinch. "That is precisely what I'm claiming. And effective immediately. Elena will lead our new cybersecurity initiative. She reports directly to me." The murmurs intensified. Michael's face flushed. "This is irrational, Alex. You're entrusting our entire digital safety to someone we know nothing about." "I know what I witnessed," Alexander replied, unwavering. "I know she worked until dawn to salvage this company when all others were absent. That is sufficient. The matter is closed." He exited before further debate could erupt, Elena following, her posture erect despite the hostile stares. In the hallway, Michael intercepted them. "This is a catastrophic error," he said, his tone low and venomous. "You have no background on her, no credentials. This will ruin us." Alexander turned slowly. "What would ruin us is blindness to the talent that just saved us. Elena has more than earned this role. The discussion is concluded." He walked away, leaving Michael standing there fuming. That afternoon, Elena returned to Apex Dynamics, but now everything was different. A new security badge, new access codes, a new office. The same individuals who previously ignored her now stepped aside as she passed. Some nodded, others whispered, but Elena maintained her composure. She understood her capabilities. Now she simply had to demonstrate it. Alexander provided her the resources, and she delivered. For weeks, Elena reconstructed Apex's digital defenses from scratch. She installed new protocols, mentored a select team, and gradually won over those open-minded enough to judge her on merit. The company's rebound became public knowledge. Investors regained confidence. The major deal was resurrected, All appeared to be stabilizing. But Elena felt a persistent unease. Late one evening, reviewing system archives, she discovered something that chilled her. Anomalous activity, unauthorized access patterns. Someone was still probing their network, testing for openings. The adversary was internal. She went directly to Alexander's office. He was there as usual, examining documents. Seeing her expression, he knew it was critical. "What is it?" he asked. Elena shut the door and opened her laptop. "Someone inside Apex is still illegally accessing our systems. These digital fingerprints match the initial assault. The person who tried to ruin us is still here." Alexander's face tightened. "A traitor?" "I lack conclusive proof," Eleanor admitted. "But yes, and they possess deep system knowledge." For the next several days, Elena operated covertly, tracking every suspicious entry, every odd data movement. She established hidden monitors that logged activity without detection. She sacrificed sleep, driven by the need to protect the company and the man who had placed his faith in her. And then she found it. A pattern in the access logs, late-night sign-ins from a privileged account. Removed files. Coded communications to external addresses. When she correlated the timestamps and user IDs, one name surfaced repeatedly. Michael Shaw, the man who had challenged her from the start. The man who seemed so enraged by her promotion. He had enabled the original breach. He was the internal threat. Helena sat back, her pulse racing. She had suspected Michael disliked her. But this was profound treachery. She compiled all evidence onto an encrypted drive and went straight to Alexander's office. It was late. The office was quiet, only the hum of computers and distant city sounds. "Alexander," she said, her voice tense, "we need to speak, immediately." He looked up from his work and gave her his complete attention. "What did you uncover?" She connected the drive to his computer. The screen populated with logs, timestamps, access histories. Michael has been using his credentials to reach protected data. He did it the night of the attack, and he's continued. He's the one who granted them entry. He's the one who tried to destroy us. Alexander examined the evidence in total silence. His complexion paled. "Michael? We've collaborated for 9 years. He helped me establish this firm." "I'm sorry," Elena said softly. "But the data is unequivocal. He is acting against you." Alexander stood and moved to the window, his hands trembling. "If this becomes public, we'll lose everything we just recovered. The board will dissolve. Investors will flee," Elena nodded. "Then we contain it for now. We allow him to believe he's secure. Grant me a few more days to identify his collaborators." Alexander looked at her, and she saw both absolute trust and profound fear in his eyes. "This is perilous, Elena. If he realizes you're investigating him," she offered a faint smile, "risk is what brought me here initially. You trusted me once. Trust me again." He inhaled deeply and consented. "All right, but please be vigilant." Unbeknownst to them, Michael Shaw had already sensed he was being watched, and he was preparing to defend himself at any cost. The stakes had escalated. The danger was now personal. Over the following days, Elena engaged in the most hazardous endeavor of her life. She created false data repositories, filled with enticing but fabricated intelligence, then observed if Michael would bite. She tracked his every digital move, careful to remain undetected. She rarely departed the office. Exhaustion was evident. Alexander brought her sustenance, concerned, but she reassured him. "I'm fine," she'd insist. "We're nearing the truth." "I can feel it." Then one night, as she prepared to leave, her phone vibrated with a message from a blocked number. She read the screen and her heart stuttered. "Cease your investigation, or face consequences." They knew. They were threatening her. Elena instantly forwarded the message to Alexander. Her phone rang within seconds. His voice was sharp with alarm. "Where are you? Are you safe?" "I'm still at the office," she replied, striving for calm. "But this confirms we're close. They're frightened. They're threatening you, Elena. We must contact the authorities." "Not yet," she stated firmly. "If we involve the police now, the masterminds will vanish. We must catch them actively." The next morning, Eleanor arrived at work early. Walking through the parking structure, something caught her attention. A compact dark object adhered beneath her car's chassis. She knelt to inspect it, and her stomach lurched. A tracking device. Someone had been monitoring her movements. They knew her residence, her routes, everything. She carefully detached it and brought it to Alexander's office. When he saw it, his face lost all color. "This has crossed a line. These people know where you live." "Which means they're desperate," Elena countered. "Let's use that." That evening they arranged a trap. Elena remained late at her desk, feigning work on a file containing fabricated financial records. Alexander waited in his darkened office, observing through the glass partitions. The suspense was palpable. Near midnight, the security feeds flickered and died momentarily. Someone had disabled them. Then Michael Shaw entered Elena's office, affecting nonchalance, but she detected the strain in his posture. "Elena," he said, his voice overly cordial, "burning the midnight oil? You'll exhaust yourself." "Just completing a task," she replied, not turning. "What brings you here?" "Left something in my office. Saw your light was on." He moved closer, his gaze fixed on her monitor. "You've certainly made an impact here." "Alexander's new protégé. I'm merely fulfilling my responsibilities," Elena stated calmly. "Your responsibilities," Michael repeated, his tone now acquiring an edge. "Interesting how your duties now include scrutinizing those with long tenure here." He reached toward her keyboard. That's when Alexander emerged from the shadows, illuminating the lights. "It's finished, Michael." Michael froze. His eyes shifted between them, and Elena saw him processing, estimating their knowledge. "You believe you comprehend this situation?" Michael said, his voice turning caustic. "You are clueless. Apex Dynamics formed alliances years ago with entities that value profit over survival. I am not the antagonist. I am merely the one who was apprehended." "You're working for Omnicorp," Elena stated quietly, watching his reaction. "They compensated you to dismantle us internally so they could acquire us cheaply." Michael's silence was confirmation. "Why?" Alexander asked, the pain audible in his voice. "I trusted you. We built this together." Michael laughed, a barren, hollow sound. "You built this, Alexander. I was just staff. You became wealthy while I earned a wage. Omnicorp offered me $3 million and a directorship. What would you have done?" "I would have chosen integrity," Alexander said quietly. "Integrity doesn't cover hospital bills," Michael retorted. "It doesn't fund college tuition. You can afford principles, Alexander." I could not. Elena felt a tremor of empathy despite the betrayal. She understood financial pressure intimately. But understanding wasn't forgiveness. "Security is en route," Alexander said. "You can explain this to them." Michael's expression shifted. Panic flashed. Then he shoved past Alexander and bolted for the exit. Alexander began to pursue, but Elena grasped his arm. "Let him go," she said. "We have all the evidence required. He cannot outrun this." But Michael knew the building's layout intimately. He reached a stairwell and vanished. By the time security arrived, he was gone, and the camera archives were erased. Elena and Alexander stood in the vacant office, the gravity of betrayal between them. "I should have recognized it," Alexander said quietly. "I worked alongside him for 9 years and saw nothing." "People become adept at concealment when necessary," Elena replied. "But we uncovered the reality. That is what matters." She accessed her laptop once more and showed Alexander the trail she'd uncovered, the financial transfers, the coded correspondence, the link to Omnicorp. Everything pointed to them. "This extends beyond Michael," she said. "Omnicorp has been attempting to absorb Apex for years. They've been compensating internal contacts, possibly even some investors. They aim to consume us from within." Alexander ran a hand through his hair, drained. "So what is our next move?" Elena closed her laptop and met his gaze directly. "We reveal them, all of them. But we do it correctly, with legal counsel and evidence and public transparency." "That could annihilate us," Alexander said. "The scandal, the exposure. Or it could liberate us," Elena countered. "The truth possesses that power eventually." Outside, the Seattle skyline glittered. Somewhere Michael Shaw was fleeing. Somewhere Omnicorp's leadership believed they had prevailed. But in this office, 2 people who discovered each other at the worst conceivable instant were preparing to prove them all mistaken. Because occasionally, revealing the truth isn't solely about punishing the guilty. It's about demonstrating your fundamental character when everything is at stake. The subsequent fortnight was the most grueling of Alexander's life, surpassing even the night of the breach. Elena compiled every fragment of evidence and delivered it to Alexander's legal team. Together, they constructed a case not only against Michael Shaw, but against Omnicorp for corporate sabotage and attempted hostile acquisition. Alexander faced a decision. He could suppress the scandal, shield Apex's reputation and pray the betrayal remained secret. Or he could publicly disclose the truth and hazard everything. Helena sat with him the night before the deadline. "Whatever path you select," she said softly, "I stand with you. But I'll share my conviction. Truth may cause temporary pain, but deception causes eternal wounds." Alexander looked at this woman who had entered his existence by chance, who had saved his enterprise, who had become his most crucial confidant. "You are correct," he said. "We disclose the truth." The next morning they held a press conference. The boardroom swarmed with journalists and cameras. Alexander stood at the podium with Elena beside him, and he narrated the entire episode. The attack, the betrayal, Michael Shaw's role, Omnicorp's conspiracy to dismantle them. The media erupted. Headlines were everywhere. But an unexpected development occurred. Instead of retreating, clients and investors rallied behind Apex Dynamics. People admired the bravery required to expose corruption. They respected Alexander's transparency. They were moved by Elena's journey, a custodian who became a cybersecurity savior and rescued a billion-dollar enterprise. Within days, Michael Shaw was apprehended, attempting to board an international flight. He confessed, providing authorities ample evidence for a federal probe into Omnicorp. Their leadership was systematically indicted. Apex Dynamics didn't just endure, it flourished. The company's valuation tripled, new partners enrolled. Alexander's landmark deal proceeded, more substantial than ever. But the most significant transformations occurred privately, in moments unseen. 3 months after the turmoil subsided, Alexander had the old server room, where Elena first rescued the company, transformed into a dedicated space. He escorted her down to witness it, and upon entering she halted speechless. "The Rodriguez Digital Forensics Lab," she read aloud, her name engraved on the plaque. Tears welled in her eyes. "Alexander, this wasn't necessary." "Yes, it was," he stated softly. "This firm endures because of you. I endure because of you. You didn't merely restore our servers, Elena. You reminded me of what holds genuine importance." She turned to him, drying her eyes. "And what is that?" "Connection," he said simply. "Not wealth. Not influence. People who care enough to persevere, even when they possess every justification to depart." He retrieved a small box from his pocket. Elena's breath hitched. "Once told me you only wished to mend what was broken," Alexander continued, his voice trembling slightly. "Well, I was shattered, Elena. My entire world was shattered. And you repaired it, not with algorithms or hardware, but simply through your character." He opened the box. An elegant, understated ring gleamed. "I don't want to lose you," Alexander said. "Not as my employee, not as my friend. I want you to remain because you choose to remain, because you wish to construct a life with me." Elena observed him, this man who had been so prideful and lost upon their meeting, who had become humble and found through their shared trials. "I made that choice long ago," she said, smiling through tears. "You simply required time to notice." Alexander laughed, sliding the ring onto her finger. "Then I am finally paying attention." They stood together in the lab they'd built, enveloped by the hum of servers and the glow of screens, knowing this was merely the commencement of something extraordinary. The narrative of Apex Dynamics' revival spread well beyond Seattle. It evolved beyond a corporate chronicle. It became a testament that sometimes the individuals who can transform our lives are directly before us. Performing labor we disregard. It became evidence that renewal is achievable, that trust is vital, and that courage isn't the absence of fear, but action despite it. Elena Rodriguez, who once cleaned offices unseen and ignored, emerged as a revered authority in cybersecurity. She lectured at symposiums, aided other firms, and never forgot her origins. She preserved her old uniform in her office as a reminder that value isn't defined by a position. Alexander Vance learned to perceive individuals, not just personnel. He learned that openness isn't frailty, that seeking aid is fortitude, and that the finest alliances are founded on mutual respect, not hierarchy. On their wedding day, half a year later, Elena wore a modest white gown and Alexander a suit. They stood in an intimate garden with their dearest friends and family. And when the officiant inquired if they wished to express personal vows, Elena spoke first. "You perceived me when I was transparent," she said, her voice steady. "You trusted me when logic argued otherwise. You offered me a new beginning when the world had erased me. That is the love that transforms existence." Alexander clasped her hands, his eyes brilliant with emotion. "You taught me that miracles aren't events that happen to us. They are people who refuse to desert us. You were my miracle, Elena, and I vow to dedicate my life to deserving that gift." As they departed the garden together, hand in hand commencing a new chapter, the sun descended over Seattle. The same city that witnessed Alexander's deepest despair now witnessed his ultimate joy. And somewhere another person was experiencing their most difficult day. Someone else felt defeated and isolated, but perhaps they would recall this account. They would remember that the people who seem insignificant could be the very ones who redeem us. They would remember that new beginnings are real. And they would remember that even in our bleakest hours, hope is merely one connection away, because that is this story's core. It isn't about technology or corporations or espionage. It's about the instant when two people at the absolute extremity of their strength discovered one another and realized that together they could forge something more resilient than they could alone. It's about observing the people around us, truly observing, and recognizing their worth even when society has deemed them irrelevant. It's about believing that tomorrow can surpass today, even when today feels hopeless. That is the miracle, not the code, not the finances, not the achievement. The miracle is our capacity to rescue one another if we are courageous enough to be visible and humble enough to request assistance. Alexander and Elena demonstrated that, and they lived their remaining years ensuring others understood it too. If this narrative moved you, I hope you'll carry its lesson forward. I hope the next time you encounter someone society has dismissed, you'll recall Elena. And I hope the next time you stand at your breaking point, you'll recall that salvation often arrives in the most unforeseen wrappings. Because the reality is, we are all one difficult day from needing someone to truly see us, and we are all one act of compassion from becoming someone else's miracle. That is the story I wish to share with you today. Thank you for listening. And if you found value in this journey, please support Winds of Thought by liking this video and sharing your own stories of unexpected heroes in the comments below.